Hello everyone, welcome back to a loose painting session. Today I'm just going to make a study of a fairly abstract landscape. I don't have an underdrawing, I'm just going to do it from imagination. But essentially the subject really is going to be the sky. I've got some interesting new paints to play around with today, so I've got the ivory black paint from Winsor & Newton, and yeah, I'm just quite excited to see what it can do. I think because it's a cooler black, I will paint a sort of a moody winter landscape, and I'm just going to use it straight out of the tube. For my paper, I've got my A5 100% cotton rough paper by Arch, and I'm just going to use two watercolor brushes. So this is my natural hair brush, number 12 round, and I'm going to use a number 4 rigger. In terms of color schemes, again, I think it will be mostly black, ivory black, but I have got some indigo, and I also have my burnt sienna. So I think these 2-3 colors is what I'm going to use on the for today's painting. Got my spray. I usually like to activate my watercolors just by wetting my palette. I've got my tea, and I need to make sure that I don't dip my brushes into the tea as I wash them out. So let's start. So for the sky, I think again, because the sky is the subject, I'm going to keep my horizon line fairly low down here. So I'm just painting with pure water, wetting the paper. Again, the sky is going to be quite abstract, so I'm really excited to see. I don't really have a plan for it. I just want to see what this ivory black can do. How does the pigment actually work on the page? How does it interact with paper? How does it interact with water? So I've got reasonably generous amount of water on the paper. My drawing board is at about it's at about 45 degrees, so it's fairly, I might lower it down a little bit. That's it. So this is probably 30 degrees or so. I like to keep it quite high, and I'm going to work right from the tube. Again, this is just pure fun. I don't really know exactly where this is going to go, so I'll get a little bit of this pigment on my brush, and let's go with it. Let's see what happens. That's really interesting. Let's add some more water in there. Pigment to the top. And just let it run down. So I think ivory black is produced by burning bones, maybe? I have no idea. Maybe you can leave a comment if you know exactly how ivory black is produced. I don't think it's a synthetic pigment. I think it is a naturally occurring one. But already this is really quite an interesting phenomenon that's occurring on the page. So I've got these runs going down almost almost like these 3D surreal runs, and I've left some white space here. I don't know what should I do with it. Can add maybe a little tree line or something, or maybe some distant mountains. Could put a couple of houses again in the distance, maybe just here somewhere. But anyway, we'll have a think. So now let's have a play with the snow in front of us. So maybe just some snowy marks along the page. I think my focal point is going to be here somewhere, so I'm going to try and make these marks lead into that. I'm just being a little bit careful not to touch the horizon too much. What I'll do is I'll dry off my brush, and I'm just going to pick up some of this extra water so that it doesn't interfere with my painting. There we go. That's quite nice, actually. This is the lovely thing about watercolors, is that I really didn't do very much at all. I didn't do any blending. I didn't think about what I would do. I had some initial ideas about keeping this area lighter than this, and then I just went in with the pigment, and then this travel of water on the page is what made all the difference. So I've established a nice horizon line, some beautiful cloud shapes, maybe, I don't know, maybe smoke rising or something along those lines, and I've got a light source here, maybe already some distant foliage. And I love the fact that the horizon line is not straight, that there are these random fluctuations, which again just adds a little bit of interest into the painting. Some warmer tones in the foreground. So, whilst the sky is drying, what I'll do is I'll just create a little bit of detail on the ground, so that I can so I don't have to use my blow dryer so I can spend a little bit of time just working on the foreground and not wait too long. Or not waste too much time on waiting until the sky dries out. So what I'll do is I think I'll get a sort of a fence going from here to here, and I will put a house here when it all dries out, and then this fence, and maybe a little road, kind of a path, snowy path. So for my fence, I'm just using some burnt umber to start with, just to see how how it would look, and I've got my my little rigger brush. So I'm just quite careful not to make these lines too predictable. Keeping in mind my perspective. So obviously if my vanishing point is somewhere here, I'm below the horizon, so all the lines should be approaching my vanishing point from below, and as they come closer to the horizon they flatten out. So in this case I've kind of created this illusion of depth by varying the size of my posts. Every post needs maybe a little horizontal shape as well, and that will lead the eye into the picture too. I've got an overhead light, which means that I can see if the paper is dry or not. And the way I see it is essentially the paper glistens. So I don't know if you can see it on this. Well, if you see this sort of glistening reflection, that means it's still wet. I can also quite carefully just touch the back of my hand, the paper, to see if that's dried out as well. So I think the foreground is relatively dry, which means I can start working on this path. So again, I'm going to use burnt umber at first, it being a lighter color, and then just see what happens. So I guess the path is going to be going towards the house. So I'm just using a kind of a dryish brush to indicate some foliage. Just going to add some indigo into the mix to the bottom of usually to the bottom of our foliage, because typically that's where the shadows are. Now shadows are quite important, I think, especially in watercolor, because that's what we need to plan those in advance. That kind of either make it or break the whole painting if we don't think about the light enough. So I've got a light source coming from here, which means anything sort of in its way is going to cast a shadow. So I think to that end, this side will need to be a little bit darker. And this side's going to be a little bit brighter. scratches in the snow, maybe footprints, something like that. You can also think about adding shadows here, so if the light's coming this way, I'm going to have cast shadows coming from this fence. And that. When I paint these, I always think, how would I be able to live in a place like this? Yeah, I think so. I think with so much snow, there's always stuff one can do. Get some skis, do some cross-country skiing. It would be difficult to keep warm, I think, especially this looks quite barren, so the landscape would be, I think, quite a challenge. Oop, nearly dipped my brush into a T. The sun's probably quiet. Now what I will do, we're missing something here, so I might just add some nice little posts. Again, they'll be in the light actually, so I don't want them too dark. So I'm using just a little bit of burnt sienna with my kind of bluish mixture just to cool it down a little bit. So let's add a couple of posts. So you can see I'm sort of painting with the lightest color first, and that's because in watercolor I can always go darker if I can't take away the color once I commit. These are just a little bit fuzzy. That's okay. Once it dries, I'm going to clarify them a little bit. I kind of want to put something here, but I'm not sure what. Maybe another post going like that. Okay. Yeah, maybe. Maybe some sort of gap in the fence. Yeah, good. I wonder what time of day it is. This is maybe that's the moon glow. Maybe it's middle of the night. Yeah. Snow does make it quite nice and bright when at night. So you don't, I mean, as long as the sky is clear, and you've got a nice, as long as you've got a nice full moon, I think it will be quite bright. Okay, so let's add the house, I think. So we'll add a little dark shape here. So I'm just mixing ultramarine with some burnt umber just to create a kind of warm dark color. To get a nice point on the brush, what I like to do is just hold the brush down and then just sort of quickly turn it so that it points into a nice little point. So So these are that's just the body of the main bit of the wooden structure. And then what I'll do is I'll indicate the roof. Simply by drawing it in like this. Like that. Maybe there's a little chimney here as well. Okay. And just add a little bit of texture to that roof. So it looks interesting. Yeah. Little houses. So I think this is dry now, so I can go in and add a little bit more tone, a little bit more texture to these posts. Can sort of disappear as we move into the distance. I find that adding the darks really brings the whole thing together. It's just this contrast that it creates. Now, let's make it a little darker at the bottom here. Nice. I'm just adding this kind of glaze over the page, just to show that the landscape is not really flat, and there are, there are lumps and bumps in it. I'm not quite sure whether that's a good thing or not. I'm not particularly pleased with it. Sort of, I think when it dries, I'm going to need to clarify this path here a little bit. The other thing is that we do need some shadows for the houses. So the light's coming from there, which means if we're consistent, then shadows will go like that. That's guinea pigs screaming. Let's see. That's alright. As a study, I think it's reasonable. I think the whole point of this was to essentially just play around with the sky, see what happens. And I think we've done that. Show this is dark. I wanted to play around with the ivory black, and I really like it. I wish it granulated a little bit more, but I really like how it sort of created these really interesting patterns. So let's just see what the whole painting looks like. We'll take the tape off. Usually, it changes how we perceive the whole painting. It shows that if the composition is missing something or if it's too much. So I really like taking off the paint. It clarifies things. Not the paint, the tape. So let's see. Here we go. This is the painting. So think about what went well, what didn't go so well. I think I like the sky. I like the indication of light there. I think I got a little bit confused with the path. I'm not quite sure what's going on. I don't know where the left side of the path is. The right side is relatively well clarified. I think I get it. But the left side of the path, I'm not quite sure what to make of it. Let's just try something again. I risk overworking this completely, but let's just try something. I have to be careful because I've already painted over it. So I'm just making this curve a little darker in hopes that it's going to create an illusion that there is a kind of a pump there in the path. But maybe it's just making things worse. I don't know. Oh well. Yeah. Can't do too much about it. Well, that was fun. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, even with paintings that don't necessarily turn out as well as I would have hoped, there's still a great deal to learn from them. And certainly every time I touch the brush, I learn something new. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.